From battlefield to bomb shelter, from home front to hospital, from volunteer rosters to victims lists, women experience war in distinctive gendered ways. These are their stories. These are their voices. Welcome to Voices of Women at Wartime, a podcast by the Center for Women's Justice in Israel. I'm Rachel Stomel.
And I'm Rivka Lubitch. So Rachel, how have you been these past few days besides being totally overworked from all the episodes that we're putting out on this podcast? What can you tell me about your life?
Well, I actually just a few minutes ago walked in from a birthday party at my son's Gan kindergarten.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. His Gan is actually, because of the war, has been moved into a different place that is a bomb shelter because the usual location of the Gan does not have a safe room. The teacher announced, this is our first birthday party that we're having in the bomb shelter. And all
my
the
God.
kids are so excited. And I'm thinking, is this real life? What? And they also did their morning prayers. And part of their morning prayers is that they read Tehillim. They say Psalms for family members of the kids who are currently deployed as soldiers in place. And so they're reading off all the names of the various parents and brothers and uncles and grandparents, and they're all singing, and I am just crying. And it's supposed to be this fun birthday party, and I couldn't handle it. I'm just sitting there crying at a birthday party in a kindergarten for 3-year-olds, and this is our life now.
Yeah. So I want to tell something that happened to me last week. I'm not sure I'll be able to put through what my feelings were, but I'm going to try because this is really something that I want to tell. Somebody reached out to me through WhatsApp from a friend from South Africa from years ago, and she said, "What's going on? How's it going? We're here in South Africa. We're all very busy. We're listening to the news, etc., and we know that we know all of what's going on." And I wrote to her and I said, that everything is really, really, really bad. Things are terrible. And as I was writing, I had this emotion or these feelings that overcame me. It was something that's never happened to me before. It was kind of like deja vu when you're feeling something that that it doesn't make sense, but it's a feeling that you feel so strongly. I felt like I'm not really me writing this in 2023. This feels like I'm in a different world, in a different place, maybe a child in the Holocaust or somebody in the Independence War. I know it sounds a little banally to say that because everyone's been saying it, this feels like we're in the Independence War, but that was more than a feeling. It was something that completely took me over, this feeling that I'm not really here. Maybe it was some kind of detachment that I was doing in my mind or something. But anyway, I got out of it, and it's following me since then, this feeling that I'm not really this person at this time. This is a different time in history. Okay, I want to introduce our guest today. We're doing something a little different today, but I'm glad to say that actually, every single episode that we've done so far, I've thought that we're doing something very different today. So that is, I guess, a good sign. So today we're hosting Yael Yechieli. Yael is a feminist activist who lives in Jerusalem and has been dealing with women's rights issues for the last 20 years. Before October the 7th, she had founded a project called 50-50 Partnership for Equity, which she will tell us about soon. And now, after October 7th, she put everything on hold, just like a lot of us did, and started a new project. Together with former Knesset member Rachel Azaria and Yael Yechieli, she initiated a project helping families where the father or the mother, but most of the time it's the father, went to war. This very much needed project is called Ogen Lemishpachot HaMiluim. In English, that would be Anchor for the Reserve Families. I don't know if that's exactly the way they translate it. And we will hear from her about all her activities, which, by the way, are totally in line with what the Center for Women's Justice believes and fights for. And we'll hear about all this in this conversation. Hi, Yael.
Hi, good morning.
First, I want to hear a little bit more about the 50-50 Partnership for Equity project. So before you started this project, I've seen you around on Facebook and Twitter. Lots of times you post things where you show there's like a conference or there's some sort of other initiative, and the flyer for it is like full of men and there's no women, and you're like, where are the women? And of course it has nothing to do with gender, that these were just the experts that we found, of course. And you've been, agitating for this and been pointing at this lack of representation for a long time. Tell us a bit about this project, how you got involved, why it's so important for you.
I'll start and say something that I want to talk in the remembrance of Vivian, that we just, Vivian Silver. She's one of the former feminist women in Israel that I learned from her so much. And we just got the message yesterday that she was murdered in her home in Be'eri, in Kibbutz Be'eri. And I think as feminists in Israel today, it's more than a month that we are in a shiva, a very long shiva. But now I feel like today I'm sitting shiva on Vivian Silver.
How come you only found out about it now? Did they
not
identify the body?
Yeah, it took them more than
more than a month. Oh my God.
Yeah, we were sure she's in Gaza, and that's what they said. But yesterday we just got the message that she was killed and murdered. And I'm saying that because she was part of Nashim Osot Shalom, Women Page Peace, and she was one of the founders. And she was talking about 50% women in every place from the day I knew her. Okay, so it's really about 50-50. It's also about Vivian Silver. The idea is very easy. Thinking wherever decisions are being made about the public, in the public, we are 50% women, maybe 51. I don't care about the 1%. But when we look on the tables where they are taking the decisions about people, it's mostly men. Actually, I was thinking about this project for a long time. And then we've been 3 years in the States, in Berkeley, because of my partner. And on that time, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. Again, I felt like I lost my grandmother. Okay, I lost my leader. And her message saying women belong in all places where decisions are being made. Okay, look at the places where decisions are being made. And I'm an activist feminist for maybe 20 years. If you ask my mom, she will say for 46 years. From the moment I realized that I'm a feminist, I used to work for women. Okay, thinking what women need. And the change that I had is understanding is not what women need, is what all of us need. It's not about gender. Okay, we need women to be in the tables of the decisions, not for women, it's for everyone. And so when I took like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like her quote, women belong in all places where decisions are being made. And then I looked about the political situation we are in, okay? And I said, okay, this needs to change. And I started to build how to do it. And I looked in the world. And actually, in most of the world, there's no 50% women in all places where decisions are being made. But there are few places, for example, Rwanda. Okay?
Rwanda?
I was not expecting you to say that. I thought you would say
Switzerland or something.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have also Switzerland and we have also Finland. But the first place in the world is Rwanda.
Wow.
Yes. And this is because a very, very tragic reason. In 2002 or 3, after the big genocide in Rwanda, the population was 70% women and 30% men, because around 700,000 men were killed.
Wow.
Okay.
No, that's not what I have thought. Okay. Wow.
I can say that in the last few weeks, I'm looking for experts for Rwanda. Okay. Understanding what happened there and how did they do that. But at the next elections, after the genocide, they voted for 50% women in the cabinet. And from then, for the last 20 years, they have a parliament of 50-50.
And is that something that was by policy that they maintained? Because I know, like, for example, if you look, in the US in the 50s, after World War II ended, during the war, a lot of women started going out to the workforce because the men were not there. The men were off overseas. And then women started going into businesses and doing all these things that they never did that were outside the home. Then the men came back. And then everyone reverted back to their domestic roles. So here, this is different, because the men were all killed, unfortunately. Yeah. They've been able to maintain 50-50 even, 20 years later. So how has this by policy, by choice?
Yeah. They did change it. Today they have the laws saying in all places that the decisions are being made should be 50% women. Today it's by law. But it started because lots of the men, also the political leaders, were killed. And then women went in this vacuum. But from that point till today, they have 50-50. And I can say, okay, in Israel, we are not in the situation of Rwanda, not by numbers, but also Rwanda is still very patriarchal political situation, okay? I said the first thing that we need is a vision. What should be our vision? And the vision is 50-50, not 1% less than that. And I think when I look on the feminist movement in Israel, I think it wasn't enough in the center of the feminist movement saying we need to be 50% in all places where decisions are being made. There's an incredible feminist movement in Israel and 75 years of really changing our world and making my life better as a woman in Israel. But in the political situation, we didn't do enough. And the first thing is for me was saying, what is the vision? And the vision is 50-50. And I think from that moment that we had the vision, and I had also, again, I feel like I had an hashgacha, okay? Like having this word, like 50-50, it's a slogan. It's a mode, and it works. And it works because when we talk about justice is a very big word. But when we talk about 50-50, it's or we have 50-50 or we don't have. It's two options.
You can measure it, very concrete.
I really want to move on to this new project that you're doing because that has to do with voices of women at wartime. So tell us about how you came to this idea of doing a new project for families of people that are in the reserve.
Yeah, so I worked for 1 year on 50-50. And we were supposed to have municipal elections in Israel in the 31 of October 2023. We were in the middle of the biggest campaign, and we had lots of women in this elections that were supposed to be the next mayors in Israel. On the 7th of October, all these campaigns stopped, and we got into this catastrophic war. And I stopped my work because, I'm not going to talk now about political tables and the elections. And what I did is we called each other, Rachel Azaria, that was a Chavrat Knesset member, and Rachel Shurati, that she's an high-tech woman. On Tzuk Eitan, 9 years ago, we had the same thing. We had a war 9 years ago. The first day, we saw lots of people of Israel are volunteering for Tzahal, and volunteering for the soldiers and volunteering for the families who just got out from their houses. And that's a great thing. But there's a vacuum about 300,000 families that in one moment, usually the mom, he became a single mom because her partner went to the war. And again, of course, she will do everything for him, that he will that he will do his work. But at the same time, she is still in her home with the kids, needs to deal with all what it means to be in a war. But she is alone there with her kids, and nobody thinks that she needs help because she's not in the field, right? And she's not in Gaza, and she's at home. But to be a single mom, it's a hard thing every day, right? But to be a single mom in a situation of a war that you are worrying about your partner and you don't know, and you didn't talk with your partner for the last 2 weeks because he's not available. So that's why we put together and said, we will open a Hamal. I don't know how you say it in Hebrew.
War room.
Yeah.
Operations room.
Operation room.
Yeah, it's operation talking about these families, not talking about the soldiers, not talking about the families that went like from Otef Aza, talking about these families that in 1 minute became a single mom that needs to deal. And what we do is we do shidduch, like we have a lot of volunteers everywhere, and we ask the families. We never ask, what do you need help? Because when we ask, what do you need help? The question is, I don't need help.
Especially women are very hesitant.
Yeah, we're okay. I'm okay. But I'm asking, tell me something. Do you have a dog? Because I know like they have a dog. Maybe we have a volunteer that can go down with your dog 3 times a day. And she's like, whoa, that like thinking about this woman that now needs 3 times a day to go with the dog. And now we have a volunteer to do that. Or to cook dinner. To cook dinner for some of us, we don't like it every day. Okay.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah. Okay. But cooking dinner when you're in a war and you're doing so, and then I can say your neighbor can bring you dinner. Why? Because she's making dinner for herself and she can bring dinner also for you. And she's like, oh, wow. Thank you for that. So this is what we do.
How this works in practice. Like you have like some sort of database, people go in there and you pair them up, or they pair themselves up.
We have a form, and the form actually, everyone can fill it. Okay, it doesn't need to be the woman herself. It can be. So what we saw is that 80% of the people who filled the form is the soldier. Okay,
wow, that's very interesting.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, the woman won't say, oh, cook dinner for me, do this for me. But the husband can say, like, this would really help out in the house. Do that for her. And then she'll.
Yeah. And then I call her and I tell her, I'll tell you the truth. Your husband is really, really thinking about you. And he wants us to help you. So is it okay that we will bring a lunch or dinner? And then it changes all the dynamic. Because it's not that she asked for it.
And also, they're not a charity case anymore. Their partner is, participating in the household. That feels very empowering, and it doesn't feel like you're, some nebuch charity case.
Yeah, and also we say, when he will come home, you can join us to help other families. And I think this is what works so good in our project, is saying that you won't ask for help, we will offer you help. And also your partner can ask for help for you, fill the form. And sometimes, like we do have like very, very, everything is very emotional here, okay? But we did, like there are forms that partners who are divorced already saying, listen, my
ex needs something. Wow.
Okay, my ex-wife needs something. The partner is saying, we are in a joint custody and now I'm not at home. Okay, so she has the kids 24/7 and I want to help her. So sometimes they are feeling, and it's like, whoa. And so this is what we did. And like we are now in the 6th week. Okay, it's from the 2nd day of the war we started.
How did you organize something that quickly? Even from the 2nd day of the war, I think we were still in shock. We couldn't function. So to raise this whole project, that's really a lot of work. That's very amazing.
Yeah, and that's because of Tzuk Eitan. Okay, we did the same thing 9 years ago, but we wrote the things. We wrote it, and we had the forms also from Tzuk Eitan, and we had it all there. We did change it to a new system of Monday because it's much better system. And now today we have WhatsApp. 9 years ago, we didn't have WhatsApp. In a technical way, it's much better today than in Tzuk Eitan. In Tzuk Eitan, we did it only in Jerusalem. We sat in a room calling people and writing with a pencil. But now it's everything online.
So it's all over the country? I was going to ask you if it's only in Jerusalem or what?
Yeah, it's all over the country. We have 240 people who are volunteering in calling their families. And we have thousands of volunteers in all Israel, like just helping in each, like the idea is the local help.
Right, that everyone helps the person that's next to them. Yes. You said to me something when we spoke before that you at some point decided to go back to the 50-50 because it's really important in this time of war that we get back to women being in the decision-making places. So tell us about that, because that's really important to know.
Yeah, so as I said in the first day, I'm a very active person. When I have a problem, I take it and I do something actively. So in the first day, like we put up this project, and after 2-3 weeks, I'm like, wait, what about the tables that there are decisions who are making now about this war?
And yeah, the war cabinet has no women in it at all.
Yeah, the war cabinet, and also not the war, not only there, like thinking how we are going to reclaim this war. No women are sitting there. Lots of women are working. Okay, they are working, they are volunteering, but they are not making the decisions.
And when we turn the news on every night, I don't know if you people watch TV, but there's usually one woman speaking, the presenter of the news, and then everyone sitting around the table are men. And it's not been that way before. Almost everyone. I shouldn't say everyone, but almost everyone that are talking are men.
Yeah, I think it has been like this for years. Okay. And then something started to change, and we saw more and more women sitting there. But
now we're falling back.
Yeah. War takes us back. Oh, like the obvious is that it will go back. And I think my mission now is saying we have to take it as a turning point, saying from now, everywhere should be 50-50, because what we did see in this war is lots of women soldiers, okay, that are fighting there, that like they are there in the field, but they are, again, that they are not making decisions, they are just fighting. So situation did change.
But I have to ask a question here, and that is, most of the soldiers that get to the top of the army are men, and they're the ones who are doing all the fighting. And there are some women, but they're the experts. So I don't know if we could have any woman on the cabinet of the war. I mean, I don't know if there are enough women that know enough about it. So I don't know if we want to get to 50-50 on that one. Bring us some examples where it's really important to have a woman. But I just feel that, we do need people that were in the army for many years, maybe not at the peace tables or other decisions, but when we're talking about fighting, yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is, at the way beginning, before the war even started, there are women who sit, and their job is to basically watch the area and notice if anything is going on. And there were a bunch of women soldiers that this was their expertise, and they said, something's going on. We see something weird. We see something that's not right.
And they weren't taken seriously, by the way. That's another thing that
not taken seriously. And I really do think there was a gender element to that, of the fact that they weren't taken seriously. And these women were not necessarily in positions of power, but they were doing the jobs that they were meant to do. And yet they were dismissed. That is something that really should underscore for us how having women in positions where they can do their jobs and be respected and be taken seriously is not just, let's do this for the women to make them feel good because we want to include them, but this is something for our own security that's really important, that our own gender bias is a security risk.
Yeah, the story about I think they call them the watchers, or like the Tetzpitaniot, the people who, like, they are the soldiers, and they sit on the border, and they look like they are the eye of this state, okay? And they look, and they said, we see something strange. We see something strange. And I'll tell you more than that. Today, these soldiers, they don't have guns.
Mind-boggling. It's crazy.
Yeah. They used to have, and then there was this decision that they won't have guns, because they sit there and they just tell in the cashier, like, we see something strange. And I think on the day of after this war, when they will check, they will realize that they were ignored again and again. and it is it's on gender basic. And I'll go back, Rivka, about what you say about the experts. Okay, there are women that they are expert in security today. Okay, and also in the army, there are, but they don't sit in these tables. And I'll say more than that. It's not only talking about the army and the security. It's also talking about the society and thinking about the society and thinking about what's the good way to deal. And I can say like something that Vivian Silver used to say, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail for you. But we need people that have other tools than a hammer, okay, when we talk about peace or when we talk about security.
I want to say one thing about 50-50, and that is that it sounds really good, but years ago, when I started getting involved in the feminist movement, in Isha Isha, woman to woman, they had this idea of the four. And that is that you have to have one woman who's Ashkenazi and one woman Sfaradi, one woman who's Arab, and one woman, I don't remember what. It gets very complicated and very sticky because why 50-50 men and women? Why not say Ashkenazi and Sfaradi? Then you get into that issue. Then you get into the issue of Jews and non-Jews or religious and non-religious. I remember when I was speaking and I was religious, somebody said, well, why isn't there a conservative woman here? And B'kitzur, in short, you get the idea that there's no end to it. And I think 50-50 men and women is great. But what do we do when when all the other people jump up and say, we want 50-50 also, then?
I'm trying to understand your question. Like, are you worried that there'll be like too much equality? Of too many people will get equality? Oh no. Like what's the worry?
I'm worried
you know,
that
like,
this is an identity issue, that we're going to throw out expertise and we will choose people only by their representing a certain type of people. That's a big issue.
I think it's a big issue. I can say that when I talk about 50-50 and when I see in the world that places that do 50-50, they care also about LGBTQ, they care also about other minorities. And I'll say more than that. There are 50% also in the Bedouins, in the Palestinians, in the Sephardic and in the Ashkenazi. In every society, there's 50% women. Okay, and that's why what I'm talking about is not identity. Okay, it's not about identity. It's about decisions making. Okay, because when I come to a table, I come with my identity as Yael, but I come and with my expertise, but I come also with what I see and what I practice in the world. In the second week, the Home Front Command at 8:00 in the evening, they send a message, please have in every house, I think 8 liters of water, and I said, there's no women who sat there and thought that it's a good idea to send this message at 8:00, okay? Because if you are a mom and you have kids at home, you will never think it's a good idea to send this message at 8:00 in the evening, okay? So it's not about identity. It's about practice of life, okay? My practices of life is not the practice of life of a Palestinian woman and not a white man. But I bring my practice, and when I think about decisions about the public, I think as a 50%. So I agree about like not now dealing with 2% for the people from Ethiopia and 2% for people from Russia, but I say 50% are in every society. There's 50%.
Okay. After the IDF spokesperson said that pathetic thing, not only to buy so much water, but he also said, and have food for 3 days, and everyone went zooming out to buy food. I've noticed the last few days that he sounds like a woman has been going over the things that he wrote, because I said to my husband one evening, that sounds like his wife went over it, and he's talking to the women at home. And then he said something about the children, the importance of children. Said, hey, his children also went over it. I mean, I'm saying that like jokingly, but somebody has taken this point to heart and is going over and thinking about how it should be seen in women's eyes.
Okay, I'll say more than that. because we bring our life into the decisions table. Okay, we bring it. So let's bring like the way we live, and that's why I'm talking about 50-50 again. And I'll say, tragically, not all women will bring the decisions I want, okay, or the
And
views
not all
I
women
want.
are feminists also. There have
Yeah,
been always women who get into positions of power and are very anti-feminist, and we're like, oh no. But the point is that women are human. Women are not ideologies. Women are humans, and they should bring all of their human experience and perspectives, even ones that we don't agree with, the same way that men have positions of power without gender being a barrier to that.
and again, and I want to say another thing, that what we can see is that when there are 50% women, some of them are feminists, and more than that, some of the men get more feminist. Okay, and this is why my like the 50-50, I'm talking about partnership. I'm not talking about women. I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking about partnership. We need to do it together, men and women, like to work for equality, okay, and for equity.
Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, Yael, for this important conversation. You've given us a lot of hope and a lot of goodness. I admire all your work so much, and you brought us a little bit of the idea of this huge wave of people doing volunteer work, and it's warmed our hearts.
And I think a lot of our episodes are very heavy, and they're, really difficult topics. And so it's really nice to talk about how we are getting out of this, how we see a problem and we are fixing it. And by we, I mean you. So, and anyone else who wants to join your project. And we'll also, in the notes here, we'll put a link to that form so people can go into it and sign themselves or their partners up for any of the services that I think would be useful for them. And that would really be a great thing to share with our listeners. So speaking of our listeners, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today, because by listening to this podcast, you are a witness. Giving women's voices your attention means giving them power. If you, like us, agree that women's perspectives are essential to the Israeli narrative, subscribe to the Voices of Women at Wartime wherever you get your podcasts, and encourage your friends to listen and subscribe too. And if you have thoughts, questions, or comments, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out to us on our social media, on the Center for Women's Justices page on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever.
Thank you, Rabbi Scott Kahn, for the recording and editing. I'm Rivka Lubitch, and I was here with Rachel Stomel. Be well and stay safe.